James.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. So thanks for letting me interview you regarding Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. The purpose of this interview is for you to demonstrate your understanding of the theory and how the theory applies to you and students you currently teach or plan to teach. So I want you to imagine I've never heard of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. Can you briefly explain salient features of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development? And what's the source of this information?
Well, the source to start off with is the text Educational Psychology by Slavin. And there's 8 stages of psychosocial development according to Erikson. 5 take place in adolescence, and the remaining 3 take place in adulthood. According to Erikson's theory, the successful completion of each stage results in a healthy personality and the acquisition of some basic virtues. Failure to complete a stage can result in a reduced ability to complete further stages, and it can also cause you to have an unhealthy personality and sense of self. So, the first stage...
Excuse me real quick, James. It's Jake calling.
The first stage is trust versus mistrust with the virtue of hope. That usually happens from 0 to 1.5 years. The second stage is autonomy versus shame with the virtue of will. You've heard of strong-willed children. This happens from 1.5 to 3 years old, which is often referred to as the terrible twos in society. The third stage happens from 3 to 5. It's initiative versus guilt with the virtue of purpose. And then we move on to 5 to 12, or our kindergarten through 6th grade years typically. It's industry versus inferiority, and it's gaining the virtue of competency. Junior high through high school kids, we're looking at identity versus role confusion with the virtue of fidelity. And then we move to the adulthood ones, which are intimacy versus isolation from about 18 to 40 with the virtue of love. Generativity versus stagnation with the virtue of caring from 40 to 65. And then finally, trying to gain the virtue of wisdom from 65 and up. It's ego integrity versus despair.
Interesting. At what stage of development do you see yourself now? And why do you think that?
Well, currently I see myself at stage 7. This is the stage where you either attempt to make your mark on the world, or you basically just punch the clock and wait to retire or die. It's clear to me at 42 by making a career change that I'm looking to make my mark. I chose to not stay in an industry that I really disliked working in. And it also shows that I'm not ready to retire because I'm setting myself up for probably 20 more years of working.
So you were telling me how you've been making your mark. Can you explain how being at this stage of development may influence your behavior and outlook in your classroom? On what do you base this explanation? Well,
I feel that being at this stage at the beginning of my teaching career is going to be a huge benefit. It's really hard to make your mark when you're just going through the motions. I think we can all look back at our careers as students, remember the teachers we had that who were motivated, creative, and enthusiastic about the materials they were teaching and how they taught them. For instance, I still remember my sophomore English teacher, junior history teacher, and senior creative writing teachers, and the projects were different, the classes were fun. They did leave a mark, and that's the kind of teacher that I want to be.
Can you identify at what level your students are or are likely to be at in Erikson's stages?
Well, I plan to teach high school, so I imagine the majority of my students will likely fall into stage 5. This is the stage where they're trying to find the identity and their role in life. Hopefully, becoming more comfortable with their true self. And as Erikson theorizes, achieving the virtue of fidelity. And fidelity, in other words, is being able to be accepting of themselves and of others, regardless of any ideological differences that they may have. being said, I'm sure that there are students with stunted and accelerated growth of their stages. So I'm sure that I'll be looking at students with stage 4 and stage 6 in Erickson's theory.
So can you explain how being at this stage of development, this may influence their behavior and outlook in your classroom? On what do you base this explanation?
Well, students looking for their role in life, according to Slavin in our book, Educational Psychology, will often turn away from their parents and towards their peer groups. This will lead to constant experimentation to figure out the answer to the question, who am I? Many students may act too cool for their class. Some will be angry or frustrated at their lack of figuring out their peer group and often be disruptive.
What might be some disconnects between you and your students, keeping the differences in the two stages in mind?
Well, you're asking what the disconnects between a 15 and a 42-year-old are?
Yep.
There's probably about a list of 600 that I can give you right off the top of my head. But obviously there's going to be some serious discrepancies between someone who is choosing to do something, which I'm choosing to be a teacher, and someone who is forced, or in a nicer way to say it, mandated to do something, which students are mandated to attend class. With the two, or sometimes, like I said, 3 stages interconnecting, it can be difficult. For example, a bookworm may hate PE because they think that, quote unquote, sports are dumb, and a student who identifies himself as one of the many kids who see themselves as a social outcast, that, in my day we called them goths, or I know now they're called emos, and we have the rockers. Part of their identity is to not be engaged and to be, have that angst. So that's going to be difficult as well when they're trying to find their social groups. Slavin states in the book that I had mentioned earlier, Educational Psychology, that stage 4 and 5 are typically the first times that students are with people outside of their family. They're dealing with these stage issues, and that this is the first time that the school in high school and junior high is playing a major role.
Interesting. Did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I just think it's important to note that Erickson's theory, while it makes a lot of logical sense, has been criticized for a couple of main reasons. One, it's difficult to confirm his theories through research. It's not something that you can really look at and do a study on. And two, Erickson himself has no formal training in psychology. He did train with Freud, but not at a higher educational institution. Hi, my name is James Greuley. Last name is spelled Greule. And today's date is August 12th, 2018.